Nicole McMahon here with Create918 at Living Arts of Tulsa during the Four Elements exhibit. One of the artists in the show, Teresa Wilber, is here with me today to talk about her work specifically. Teresa is a good friend of mine. I've actually known since I was 12 years old. So it's been really wonderful to reconnect with her in the arts community and get to know her and her work and process. Teresa, let's talk a little bit about your work in particular in this show and talk about what inspired you to create some of these pieces, maybe a little bit about your artistic background, and then we can dive into some specific work and go from there.
Well, as you know, my background involves being a traditional calligrapher for over 30 years, and that has been a rewarding experience, but I was getting to the point where I wanted to take those forms, those traditional forms, and become more expressive with them. So that's kind of what this show is starting to show is taking the forms, making the marks, and then incorporating them into the packaging of the books as for presentation.
Yes, part of what I so love about your work, in particular, being a graphic designer, the word mark just resonates with me because it does lend to, say, logo creation. I also love your work so much because it's all about the paper, the process, the bookmaking. What a wonderful traditional process that it's been around for hundreds of years, but still so wonderful to see happen even today in the era of iPads and Nooks and digital media that overwhelms us. But these are things that we can touch and see and feel, and there's some sort of also, I think, movement to the piece as well as you look at it. So Teresa, tell me a little bit about your background as an artist. Everything from when you first started, when you first maybe knew you were an artist, some of the first works that you created, perhaps, maybe artists that inspire you, where you learned, who you learned from, just all those things that tend to really make us who we are as an artist.
I started calligraphy in the early 80s and took many workshops from a lot of wonderful calligraphers from all over the country. And in all of those workshops, I learned not only technique of the letter forms and the historical letter forms that have been in our past for many centuries, learned a lot about the techniques, the tools, the inks, the pens, but also took other classes like watercolor, even sculptural classes too, and then it just seems like all of this is starting to come into play. But when I was doing traditional calligraphy, I was working for corporations like Phillips Petroleum doing retirement scrolls and other companies to do awards and things for large corporations, as well as doing commission work for people for private artwork. And eventually it got to the point where I wanted to create things for myself, self-promotion, works that were speaking to me, and that's where I started using different techniques, unfamiliar techniques, unreadable techniques, and just started working with things that I enjoyed. And I've always loved paper, always loved bookbinding, and so it's just all kind of come together after all these years. I have some paste marks already, and what I showed you earlier about making marks is you want to have both sides completed to do this design. So I thought maybe